Good morning, everybody. Welcome to City Hall, welcome to Council Chambers, and welcome to a meeting of the Los Angeles City Council for today, Tuesday, February 24th, 2004. The City Council meets every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. Meetings are open to the public, and we do invite you to join us. For members of the public unable to attend council meetings, we can be viewed live on your cable station, Channel 35. We can also be viewed live via webcast from the city's homepage or heard via council phone. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Cardenas, Garcetti, Gruel, Hahn, Labange, Ludlow, Miskowski, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Smith, Villaraigosa, Weisstein, Padilla, 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. The council is officially in session. Before beginning with the matters appearing on today's agenda, this being Tuesday and the first meeting of the week, it is our custom to have our salute to the flag. Let me recognize Councilmember Perry for our Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Please rise. Place your right hand over your heart and join me in saying, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Perry. Madam Clerk, first order of business, please.
Approval of the minutes.
Mr. Smith moves and Ms. Miskowski seconds.
Commendatory resolution for approval.
Mr. Garcetti moves and Mr. Ludlow seconds.
Mr. President, this is the time for comments from the public on items not on council's agenda.
And this is public comment for today's meeting. Council calls forward Ms. Nadine Diaz, followed by Miguel Angel Perez. Please come forward at this time.
Should I wait till everyone listens, or should I start? Okay. My name is Nadine Diaz, and I was born in 1962. I'm a third-generation stakeholder in Boyle Heights, and I'm here to address the issue of the CRA Adelante redevelopment project. I have been a PAC member since 1996. I have filmed every single PAC meeting and every election thus far. For the record today, I would like to bring to your attention that I think it's very imperative that the City Council of Los Angeles amend the procedural rules for the election, the PAC election, because what has happened is that we have interlopers that come into our community and try to dictate what is best for our neighborhood and our community. And Mr. Padilla, I am very sure you know who exactly I am talking about. This individual happens to be Mr. Don Lippman, and it's very unfortunate that since he has been on the PAC, there has been a lot of obstruction and a lack of community participation because he tends to control the electoral process. So therefore, I am here to speak on behalf of the community, CD14, the Adelante redevelopment project area, so that we as a community can represent our own community. So please amend the procedural rules so that everyone has an equal participation and is able to plan for our community. Thank you.
Mr. Perez. Miguel Angel Perez. If he's no longer here, then this concludes public comment for today's meeting. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
On the regular agenda, items 1 through 5 are items noticed for public hearing. They are ordinances, and I believe 12 members will be in council today. Do you wish to hold those?
Okay, let's hold items 1 through 5 temporarily on the desk. Before we do that, let me recognize having not received any requests from members of the public to address the council on items 1 through 5, that satisfies the public hearings. Next item, please.
Items 6 through 9 are items for which public hearings have been held. Item 6 is an ordinance, and do you wish to hold that one on the desk also?
6 through 9 public hearings have been held in committees. Motion from the floor would be required to reopen the public hearings. Seeing no such motion, do we have any requests for specials? We'll hold 6 on the desk for just a few seconds. We now have 13 members present. Any specials 6 through 9? Special. 9 called special by Mr. Villaraigosa. Any other specials? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please open the roll on items 6 through 8. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Those are approved. Let's go back now to items 1 through 5. Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 eyes.
Those ordinances are approved. Next items, please.
Next items are items for which public hearings have not been held, items 10 through 31. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Without objection, items 10 through 31 are before the City Council today. Colleagues, I do have cards on item 14. We'll call that special. On the balance of the items, I do not have requests from members of the public to address the council. Public hearings are open. Public hearings are closed on the balance of the items.
And Mr. President, on item number 13, there is a technical amendment that needs to be made. The hearing date should be changed to April 20th, 2004.
Without objection, colleagues will be considering item 13 as amended. Request for specials, Mr. Garcetti?
Not a special, but my apologies if we can reconsider 8 when we get done with this section.
Okay, we'll come back to that in a second here. Any requests for specials, members, items 10 through 31, with the exception of item 14? Seeing none, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 eyes.
Those are approved, including item 13 as amended. Next item, please.
The next item, Mr. President, would be the item called special, which is item number 9, and I
Before-
believe Mr. Garcetti wanted to reconsider
Yeah,
number
before coming
8.
to item number 9, Mr. Garcetti moves reconsideration on item number 8. Let's open the roll on reconsideration, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 eyes.
Item 8 is back before us. Mr. Garcetti, your pleasure on item number 8.
Thank you very much, Mr. Padilla. Colleagues, I think this isn't specifically about water rates, but as we start turning our attention towards water rates, I wanted to point out a couple things about water here. One, I wanted to commend in this the Water Resources Business Unit for doing a great job for planning for future water needs and fighting water waste. As we look at costs that have to do with bringing water to Los Angeles and our consideration of a raise in water rates, I think it's very important for us to underline what we can do and underscore what we can do to preserve water here in Los Angeles and what every Angelino can do as well. In the report that we're voting on today, you'll see that 29% of water is used by multi-family customers and 16% is used by commercial customers. Now, they represent our biggest opportunity to reduce water waste and landscaping and reduce fertilizer-laden runoff that goes into the LA River and that washes out to the sea that's in Ballona Creek and our lakes in the city. And so both of these land uses are covered by the city's existing landscape ordinance, which since 1996 has been trying to push developers to install proper landscaping and irrigation and have drought-tolerant plants when they build new projects. And just kind of as a heads up, as we look at water rates and the potential rise in water rates, the Department of Planning, with the assistance of a task force that's being led right now by the American Society of Landscape Architects, is working to update and to strengthen the landscape ordinance guidelines, which covers 45% of all of our water customers here, so that we can all kind of reduce our water use, our irrigation use specifically. We waste so much of that can be preserved and potentially help us bring down water costs. This irrigation water is just washed into the gutter, and we need to increase the use of plants that are less thirsty. So this spring we'll be releasing the results of this to the Planning Commission, but I just wanted to praise again the work of the Water Resources Bureau Business Unit for kind of pushing the envelope that way, and this is really highlighted in the report, and we can all do something here in the city as we look long-term at water rates to make sure that we're preserving even more. So thank you very much, Mr. President.
Mr. Labange.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti, for calling this special. That's because we share Silver Lake together and know the importance of water. I see Tom Erb here and Wendy Yancey. You want to come up to the front table, and I'd like you to share some of the background on this report. Members, from time to time, the Department of Water Power gets criticized, as all of us do, as all departments do, and some of it is justifiable, some of it is not justifiable. But the department does try to inform the people of Los Angeles its issues every year on the annual water report and update on water. And I think it's there's a calm between the storm, so to speak, because the rain of last week and last weekend, and now there's supposed to be rain later on. But tell us a little about this report, if you would. You could hold my time, Mr. President, and the importance of what you try to communicate to the users and ratepayers of Los Angeles about the water system, and how do we look this year and the subsequent years to follow. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councilman. This report, actually, every 5 years, the city is required to. every 5 years, the city is required to prepare a formal comprehensive urban water management plan report. But we feel that it's of such importance that we should put out an annual update. And so what this update reflects is that it shows that given the diversity of the city's water supply, that we do have enough water to meet the needs for at least for the foreseeable future. And why we're highly dependent on the snowpack for our own Los Angeles aqueduct, the water we obtain from the Metropolitan Water District, and all of our conservation and recycling programs and other initiatives are ensuring that we have enough water supply for at least the next 10 years.
Could you clarify, because I think this is an extremely important statistic. The population of Los Angeles in 1970 and the population in Los Angeles 2004 is greatly increased, almost over 1 million people, correct?
In the last 20 years, yes.
30 years,
In the last
30 years.
yeah.
But our water use, correct, is pretty, give me that statistic that Jerry Gateway always quotes so eloquently.
Right. Well, the statistic that we like to use is that in spite of close to 750,000 increase in population in the last 20 years, our water use has remained the same. So we're using the same amount of water that we did 20 years ago, and we've seen 750,000 increase in population.
And that's because of conservation efforts and also improvement in the system of the building departments of requirements for plumbing and water reuse, which is so important, and all water is recycled. Is that true?
That's true. The water cycle is a natural cycle by nature.
Right. Well, thank you very much, and thank those people from Lee Vining all the way down to any pump house you have in the city for bringing the water to the Pueblo. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Other members wishing to be heard on item number 8? Seeing none, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 eyes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Item number 9 was called special by Councilmember Villaraigosa.
Mr. Villaraigosa.
Yes, Mr. President, members, I asked that this item be called special for the purpose of making a technical correction on attachment A, which is referenced in the Transportation Committee report. The estimate for about 4 of these projects has been revised, and we just wanted the technical amendment to reflect that.
Okay, without objection, I'll consider item 9 as amended.
Excuse me, is there a new amount or?
Yes, that new amount is for projects 11, 12, 13, and 17 is $500,000.
Okay. Members, any further discussion on this item? Okay, if not, we can also provide that in writing to the clerk for clarification. Let's open the roll on item 9 as amended. Close the roll. Mr. Labange, we're about to tabulate the vote here.
I just had a question, Mr. President. I was just talking about the item previous to this, the important outreach. So I can't talk about this, but I see our staff here.
Mr. Labange, we're on item number 9. We're about to finish the vote. Does it pertain to item number 9?
Yeah,
Okay.
I want to talk about item number 9.
Okay, let's hold the roll open. Mr. Labange, now is your time.
I think it's important sometimes. I'm sorry, members, if I jumped up a little late on this here. Safe routes to schools is extremely important, and I see our staff, Pauline, you're here, and you're always such an articulate speaker. For those who watch us, this message of safe routes to schools, tell us about the general program and what we're doing right now, and you can step right around there. Sergeant will help you. Well, I was just criticized by calling it, but I think safe routes to school is real
Okay,
important.
let's have some order here, please, and hear from the staff. Go ahead.
Good morning, council members. Pauline Chan from the Department of Transportation. The Department of Transportation and other city agencies and the council offices have been working for the past 5 years on coming up with safety projects to encourage school children to walk to and from schools. And also to improve safety for children while they're walking to and from schools. This report represents the 5th time that we're going to the state entering more than $10 million worth of projects in a state competition to compete for funding that comes in to the city at about $1.5 to $2 million a year. This program is a great opportunity to augment the pedestrian safety program that the city already is engaged on, and it provides much-needed resources to do things such as repair and build new sidewalks, construct smart pedestrian warnings, provide tunnel lighting for pedestrian tunnels. Am I missing any? Smart crosswalks?
Anything else?
No.
Okay, Mr. Labange.
Thank you very much for articulated safety around schools, safe routes to schools, pedestrian safety are very important, and I know you do a great job for the department and others. Very important. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Other members wishing to be heard on this item? If not, roll is open. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
13 eyes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Next item is item number 14, and that was called special. There are cards on that item.
Okay, this is public comment period for item number 14. The council calls forward Mr. Bill Farhood, Michael King, Sheila Goldberg, and Dennis Hathaway, and James Morez, I believe. If you'd form a line behind the podium, that'll expedite our hearing here. Go ahead, sir.
I represent the Marina Peninsula Neighborhood Association, which consists of 230 property owners in the Marina Peninsula area of Venice, and we would like to state our support of the ordinance as proposed.
Hello, my name is Michael King. I'm a 25-year resident and representative with the Venice Windward Improvement District, and I'd like to speak a little bit to the fact that 14 is really about funds and using funds within our district as they relate to real public works improvements. Venice is the playground of Los Angeles. It's also the image that a lot of people walk away from Los Angeles with. We want to make sure that that image is more polished and clean and something that we're all proud of as people of Los Angeles. It's not just about our district. It's about all the district's image. It's about the people of Los Angeles image, and it will be something that will benefit all of the council districts in terms of tourist dollars, hotel sales taxes. It's not just about Venice, it's about the city of Los Angeles, and I'd like to give my wholehearted support. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I have Ms. Sheila Goldberg, Dennis Hathaway, James Morez, Daryl Dufay, and Patrick Roberts. Please come forward.
I'm Sheila Goldberg. I've lived in Venice since 1973, and actually some of the projects that would be benefited under the support of this proposal are things that the community has vetted for many years. We've either spoken to the council person or to the deputy for many years, even before these people were involved, when Ruth Galanter was there. And we respect that a lot of the projects that we're talking about may not fall under capital improvement, but there are things that will benefit the community, and we respect that the city has lost funds for doing some of the things that we want. And so if we trust our city council person, which we do, we'd like to give them some discretion in figuring out what the community needs. And as I said, we represent many, many groups in the area, and we fully support this project.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this item. My name is Dennis Hathaway. I'm a resident of Venice. I'm also a member of the governing board of the Grassroots Venice Neighborhood Council, which is the duly certified neighborhood council for the Venice area. This matter was submitted to the neighborhood council by council member Ms. Kowski, asking for their input and approval. The council, the board subsequently voted as follows on item A, to approve it with the proviso that any resolutions for funding be presented to the neighborhood council before they come to the city council. Item number B, the Neighborhood Council voted against use of any funds for non-capital improvements. And item C, the Neighborhood Council voted in favor of eliminating the expiration provision. In light of this, I believe that the Neighborhood Council has voted, has represented the will of the people in the community, and I urge this council to vote in accordance with its wishes and to not approve this motion until it's this ordinance until it's rewritten to represent the Neighborhood Council vote on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Patrick Roberts. I'm with RAD Management. We're located at 615 Hampton Drive. I'm here on behalf of Robert D'Elia, the managing partner of RAD Management, who couldn't be here today. We learned about this at the last minute, but he would like to express his thoughts. Mr. D'Elia lives and works in Venice, and we are here to support City Mizikowski's motion. We feel strongly that the funds collected in Venice should be reinvested back in Venice-based projects, and the council member and the community can later decide how best to do that. But the motion makes it possible for these reinvestment dollars to be used in the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm not sure if I got the order right, but my name is James Murez. I'm a resident of Venice for about 20 years. I've also taken quite a stake in the community. I've managed the Venice Farmers Market for 18 of those 20 years. It's one of the oldest markets around. It's very community oriented. It happens to be located on Venice Boulevard, which is one of the areas that has been called out for possible use of funds to finish the landscaping that was done on Venice Boulevard, which I started in 1990 after the boulevard was realigned and there was no landscaping available. I got a tree planting project and planted about 1,400 trees in the community. It was a very large project that Mr. Lamonge actually participated in many years ago and came down for some of our plantings back in those days. This project needs to be finished, and part of the funds that we're talking about would finally finish that project. It's a project that's overdue. It's been on the boards for well over 20 years to make this truly the ceremonial gateway into the community, which everyone likes to refer to as the second largest tourist attraction. So if there's anything that we can do to help support this and make it happen, we by all means would like to. And I strongly support the councilwoman's motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have about 4 minutes left in this hearing, and we have speaker cards from Darrell Dufay, John Curtis, Richard Faybush, Kevin Brunk, Didi Audet, and Marta Uri. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Darrell Dufay. I'm a resident of Venice. I'm also the immediate past chairperson of the Land Use and Planning Committee of Grassroots Venice Neighborhood Council. And I'm also bringing to you welcome from the Voice of the Canals, our resident organization in the Venice Canals with 151 members. We strongly support the motion by Ms. Mizikowski today. There are needs within the entire community and the Venice area that are necessary, and there are other people that do support, as organizations, her motion. So I strongly hope that you will be able to vote in the affirmative for all three parts of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
John Curtis, 30-year resident of Venice. Thank you for allowing me some time. I'm strongly in favor of this motion. All of the elements are very positive for the community. The community is very broad-based, somewhat representative in many and various fashions, but I've been there many times, many years, and this is something that's very good for the community. I'm president of a new foundation, which will be talked about later, called Venice of America Foundation, whose mission and purpose is youth and beautification. This is all very consistent. The motion will help facilitate all the things and purposes that we have to make Venice a better place to live. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rick Feibush. Oops, sorry about that. I'm coming here today from the Rose Avenue Working Group, a group that has over 650 members in the area, well over 300 involved in our community group. We wholly support this to the end. Thank you, Cindy.
Mr. Brunk.
Good morning, Mr. President and council members. I've been a Venice resident since 1979. I was co-chairman of the board in 1989 and 90 when we renamed the street Abbott Kinney, and planted 80 palm trees. In year 2003-2004, I became chairman of the board of the Abbott Kinney District Association, which we had the largest festival ever. We had 60,000 people. Currently, I've started a foundation called the Venice of America Foundation for beautification, and there's currently a park in the medium strip that Department of Recs does not have the current fiscal budget to take care of, which we're planning on having our foundation move forward and help maintain that, where these funds could help underwrite that. We totally support Cindy's motion, and we'd hope you ask for an aye vote. Thank you.
My name is Dee Dee Audette. I'm a member of District 6 Grassroots Venice Neighborhood Council. I and the people in my neighborhood want that money for Venice. We need the money for Venice because we are such a great tourist attraction, and we want to remain a tourist attraction. We need that money. Please let us have it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Marta Every, and I live at 758 Palms. I'm a member of the Palms Neighborhood Association. We have over 2,000 people in our portion of Venice. We completely support Cindy Misikowski's motion for the Venice Surplus Fund, and we oppose Gruvnik's position on this stand. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all very much for coming. We've also received cards from Warren Bauman, and Harris Levy for the proposal as well. So thank you for being here. Your cards will be added to the file. This concludes public comment on this item. Let me recognize Councilmember Misikowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I'd like to thank all of the residents and business people from Venice who came down. Members, when I came into the Venice community by way of redistricting, I learned that there was a Venice Real Property Trust Fund, and most of us have such a trust fund. The different thing, though, was Venice was the first real property trust fund, and it was set up by ordinance, and it was set up by ordinance to expire in 30 years. It was set up in 1978, so it is so soon to expire. So one of the first things I did was bring in a motion to say, let's not have it expire. There's another thing about the Venice Trust Fund that is different from the normal ones, and that is 100% of the sale of the Venice real property that's surplus goes into the Venice Property Trust Fund. And that was for reasons initially when it got set up in the 70s, is that it was primarily made up of properties that had been old oil drilling rig sites in the Venice Peninsula. So the Venice community had suffered for decades the degradation of those properties as they were finally eliminated and finally turned over and able to be made for sale. It was felt that it was important to give back to the Venice community the degradation it had suffered as a consequence of those. And thirdly, as I think many of the residents there indicated, Venice is not just the Venice community, it's just not for Venice. In the summertime, we know that Venice is often ranked either number 1 or number 2, Venice Beach, as the top tourist attraction in the Los Angeles, Southern California region. So Venice gets, particularly in good weather time, which is more than just summer, an awful lot of visitors and a lot of the brunt of it. This Venice, and there was a third or fourth problem, the Venice Real Property Trust Fund, at least in the ordinance, could only be accessed for other capital projects. So we put the proposal together to say, let's, one, extend it, let's make sure that we have access to the funds, we don't need an ordinance to access it, and that debate in the community has been, should we keep it only for capital or should we allow it for other projects, as people have talked about. This last year we did make an exception and had Chrysalis, a nonprofit agency, service the Oceanfront Walk area, and I dare say that most people who I've talked to in and around Venice and Oceanfront Walk said that this last summer Oceanfront Walk look better with the high level of pedestrian and other activities there than it has in the past, because we were able to access funds for that. So this ordinance does that. It extends the life of the ordinance, allows it to continue to be 100% spent in Venice, and does allow for discretion of capital or non-capital projects. I have agreed with the Grassroots Venice Neighborhood Council to say, and all the neighborhood associations, that anytime there is a project proposed from within and among the various Venice neighborhood groups, from the Grassroots Venice Neighborhood Council itself, that a proposal will go to them first for their input and their reaction to come back before it is accessed for a project. So we will have that input. We will do what neighborhood councils are all about and consider these issues. But I ask for an aye vote so that we don't lose this, which has as I said, a 30-year sunset clause that is coming up in the next couple of years, and give us accessibility to help the community with the various projects that it's going to be putting forward. Again, I ask for an aye vote, members.
Mr. Labange.
Good morning. Hey, Sydney, hi. I'd like to talk to Ron Deaton about this. Is Ron still here? Or Bill Fujioka? Bill, you know about this issue? I just want to know how it affects. I know in Griffith Park there's a methane fee, and they take the money out of that and they use it citywide. Griffith Park was a landfill in Toyon Canyon, impacted heavily about that problem, and not all the money stays in Griffith Park, but it does over the years. This is now like a 30-year situation. I just want to explain it because I kind of like local control. I think it's real important. But does this set any precedent that will hurt? What happens now to the money? What happens now to the fund? It could be used right now. What is being used? I know what, let me explain what my concern was, is in Griffith Park, they have the methane fee, and they used to use that to fund programs citywide, which is okay. That was important, but then we've never really, let's say, completely closed the landfill and never done anything there. We just kind of wait, now we're out of money. Explain this and how it works, and does it have any effect citywide as far as what may happen in the future on similar like real property funds?
Well, first I want to say that from my perspective and the perspective of our office, this is a very good proposal. What it does is it provides some flexibility, but also more important, provides some funds that presently are not available to maintain, to provide some maintenance fees for some of the properties and other programs in that area. More important, the properties. But it does provide that flexibility. This is something that I'd recommend you do.
But before you would be able to use it throughout West LA or throughout Los Angeles, right?
No.
Never.
This one, this is very restrictive to this area.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Deaton?
This has been in place for a long time, one. Two, it was the model that was used for the, there's an ordinance that any surplus 50/50 anywhere in the city. And this was kind of the model for that that ordinance that does it for the rest of the surplus properties. But the Venice situation was kind of unique because of the nature of the canals, et cetera, and that's why this was done ages ago. I think actually almost prior to my tenure with the city.
Other microphones, thank you very much, and other things like the Toyon Canyon. See, this sparked my interest in a special restricted fee, some of these methane fees or whatever. Do you have a list of all these special property funds? The CAO probably, right?
We can put
if you could, and I think we should share it with all of us to become more knowledgeable and make sure it's done the right thing. And I stand to support this effort for the people of Venice under the great leadership of Cindy Misikowski. Thank you.
Mr. Cardenas.
I apologize to Ms. Misikowski for not bringing this up to you personally and asking you these questions. Mr. Fujioka, Mr. Ron Deaton, can you please come back to the table? And I don't apologize for putting you on the hot seat. Only to Ms. Misikowski. Now, this is something, I heard the words, this is the way that it's been for, what, 30-some years or what have you. There's something unique about the canals, things of that nature. But the other communities throughout the city of Los Angeles don't enjoy this opportunity, or are there other exemptions besides this one?
Except for this one, it's 50-50 throughout the city. And what had happened until, I'd say about 10 years ago, when surplus property was sold, then all of it went to the general fund. And there was a desire that to keep some of that money locally. So an ordinance was passed that 50% of the proceeds of the sale of any surplus property remained in the district that it was sold. It also, let's say, provided some incentive to allow the sale to go through. Up until that point, there was little or no incentive to do that, and so there was, it was a kind of a two-way street.
So by that logic, in Venice, basically, they have double the incentive that maybe Pacoima has for seeing that the city put some of its surplus property to sale and get some local benefit and also some citywide benefit. Depending on how you want to look at it, whether the glass is half full or half empty, the situation was that... Well, I think for Venice, the glass is completely full. I don't disagree. And for 25 years, it was 100% versus 0, and then the council made the decision to make it 100 versus 50. Yeah, but that's the opposite of the point, the case in point right here with Venice. Venice has been for close to 30 years, 100%, not citywide, but 100% the money stays in Venice. That's correct. And can you elaborate a little bit more on what the reasoning was, if you know the reasoning why there was that exemption only for that part of the city? Or I would need to look at the files, but my recollection... Does somebody in the room feel confident and comfortable coming to the microphone and explaining that accurately?
Again, Mr. Carnasota, as I understand, Pat Russell, the council member of the district, this was back in the days when there were a lot of these lots that had been, well, were surplus, but were not being sold. A bulk of them had been previous oil drilling lots that the city owned. It was the incentive to try to cause those to be sold because you had not only degradation from what had occurred previously, but degradation in terms of as an area was trying to grow up around it. You had these lots that were not producing anything. And so it was the incentive to say, let's sell those, but give that back to Venice for all of the other issues that were going on in Venice. And as I said, particularly, the unique thing about Venice as a community, not unlike a whole lot of others that have needs, but Venice has a need not only in that community, but Venice serves as the community to the bulk of the populace in the summertime from not only the city of Los Angeles, but everyone else coming to the beach. Our beach is Venice Beach and the Oceanfront Walk, and anyone who's gone there on any weekend or any day of the week sees much, much, much more use there, and that's where this fund was thought to give back to Venice.
Well, thank you very much for that clarification, Ms. Kowski. But on the flip side of that, let me use Sun Valley as an example. Sun Valley, on the flip side, it bears the burden of quarries, plants, dump sites, and all those kinds of things, yet then they bear that burden. Yet when we have surplus property in Sun Valley, they don't necessarily get the benefit of saying, well, that whole dollar comes back, let's call it mitigation, back into the community for the burden that they bear for the rest of the city and the rest of perhaps the region in some cases, because some of that trash doesn't only come from the city of Los Angeles, it comes from all over the region, wherever it's feasible for them to bring it and then dump it there. I respect the fact and I understand why you as the council member of that district would want to see this continue, but the thing that bothers me is this is something that can be made as an argument in any corner of the community. But for example, if that's the case, then maybe if Venice is going to have that exemption and part of the argument is for the burdens continuing to be laid on Venice, because it sounds to me as though those oil fields or those plots are perhaps mostly a thing of the past, and that era pretty much has been dealt with, and those funds, those plots have been sold, and that money has gone to Venice, and they've used it appropriately and beneficially to Venice. But at the same time, perhaps if you were to describe to me that they're going to take this money and they're going to take say, poor kids from all over the city of Los Angeles and use this money to bus them over to the beach so that we have less children who live in the city of Los Angeles to benefit directly from that money and not go all the way to the age of adulthood and saying, I've never been to the beach. Because we do have children inland in the city of Los Angeles who actually have that lifestyle. So if that's the case, then I could see the nexus between the Venice taking this money and not sharing it with the rest of the city, but at the same time putting out forth some opportunity for them to share with the rest of the city this opportunity. So,
Well, let me just indicate
Ms. Misikowski.
that there are other properties in the Venice area, and in fact, I've already met not only with the Grassroots Venice, but with the mayor's housing people, because there are properties, in fact, even properties on Oceanfront Walk, which I've suggested should not be surplus. Don't sell and put them into this, but let's look at not only affordable housing, but there are monies that I've shared with Mr. Garcetti that are available from different developments in the West Side from the 80s forward that put money aside in a trust fund, not the housing trust fund that we know, but other smaller ones that could be used to put housing in those communities, affordable housing in those communities to offset some of the other market housing. So it's not just to sell all the lots or any of the lots that are remaining, but also to use the tools that are available to make, fulfill all of the purposes that are city-wide purposes, whether it's housing, whether it's access to the beach, or once people get to the beach, that they've got a clean, maintained facility there because of the extra burden of the large numbers of people who are there.
well, what I'd like you to entertain, Ms. Misikowski, if you could put this over a little bit further so I can understand it better, and I can respect the fact that there might be some other things burdening you to want to put this forth today. I respect that. I respect, your position and the way you handle things. If you would take that as a friendly motion, then I would go ahead and move it forward. If you think that there are other things pressing that wouldn't make that feasible, I respect that, and we'll go ahead and hear it today.
I would be willing, I think you're the last speaker, and this was the last item I was going to ask, so we lay it on the desk. We don't have more time. Why don't we continue it one day?
For tomorrow? And we're not meeting on Friday, from my understanding. Are we meeting Friday? No, we're not. Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Misikowski.
Okay. Members, is there any objection to a one-day continuance on this matter? Seeing none, this item is continued. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Motion shall be posted and referred.
There are excuses on the desk. Councilmember Ludlow requests to be excused tomorrow to leave at 11 a.m., and that motion is required.
Mr. Garcetti moves. Mr. Ludlow is excused.
Councilmember Councilmember Gruhl requests to be excused Wednesday, February 25th to leave at 11:40 for city business. A motion is required.
Ms. Hahn moves. Ms. Gruhl is excused.
Councilmember Garcetti requests to be excused Friday, March 26th to arrive at 10:45 for city business. That meets council policy.
Mr. Garcetti is excused.
And Councilmember Hahn requests to be excused Friday, March 12th for city business. That meets council policy.
Ms. Hahn is excused.
And that clears the desk.
Mr. Labange for an introduction.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We have distinguished 10 member of the Central Government of China Department of Construction Ministry, led by Mr. Hu. Mr. Hu, good to see you, Mr. Hu. And Shay, welcome to Los Angeles. Please give him a great welcome to our city. Please visit the tower, the City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Colleagues, this is the end of our agenda. Do we have any announcements today? Any announcements? If not, then I'd ask everybody to please rise for adjourning motions. Colleagues, as some folks are leaving chambers, and before beginning with adjourning tributes, let me announce, as Mr. Cardenas said just a minute ago. Yes, Mr. Labange?
The people were listening to you in the back. Thank you.
As Mr. Cardenas said just a minute ago, decided to cancel the council meeting for this Friday. As many of you know, and this will serve as a transition into adjourning tributes, we've had a police officer fall in the line of duty this last Friday. This Friday coming up, the funeral will take place at 10 a.m. At the cathedral, just up the street here at 10 a.m. And so to allow for council members and other members of the city family to participate in that, we'll cancel this Friday's council meeting, and any items slated for the agenda for this Friday will roll over till next Tuesday, so please be aware of that. But with that being said, let me be the first to offer my condolences and prayers to the family and friends of Police Officer 2 Ricardo Lizarraga, who was shot and killed this last Friday in the line of duty. As many of you know, he was 30 years old, married with no children, and had been in the department only for about 3 years. He was working in the Newton area. He is survived by his wife Joyce, his father Candelario, his mother Maria, his brother Jorge, and sisters Lorena and Laura. Visitation will take place this Thursday at St. Augustine Catholic Church at 3850 Jasmine Avenue in Culver City from 4:30 on. And the funeral, as I mentioned, is this Friday, and the interment will immediately follow the funeral at Holy Cross Cemetery at 5835 West Lawson Avenue in Culver City as well. I ask that the entire council adjourn in his memory. Colleagues, other tributes? Ms. Perry?
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and I'm very pleased that you spoke of Officer Lizarraga first. I joined with residents and officers out of Newton Division last night after the candlelight vigil for a little boy, and we ended up at the spot where Officer Lizarraga lost his life and then proceeded over to Newton Station. I would say that I was humbled by the presence of his family, and the dignity that they carried themselves with was astonishing. And also ask all of my colleagues to remember his partner, Officer Ruiz, who was with him at the time, who has been severely traumatized and is deeply, deeply hurt by the loss of his good friend, and as well as all the other officers and hardworking people at the Newton Community Station. And I can tell you firsthand, it is truly a community station. And this is a community tragedy that happens all too often. And as I mentioned before, we had walked with Councilmember Parks and former Councilmember Margaret Lee Thomas and Congresswoman Diane Watson on a candlelight vigil down Western Avenue to also remember not only Officer Lizarraga, but Gregory Gabriel, who was 12 years old and was tragically shot and killed over the past weekend. He was, as you may have read in the Los Angeles Times, sleeping over with friends for the very first time ever and died as a result of indiscriminate gunfire. He and a friend went with an older brother to visit a club when he was shot. It was unfathomable, and it's an event that so many of us who have children have done time and time again, and to think that you could lose your child in this way is almost incomprehensible. And again, his mother and father were there at the forefront of this march, as well as his aunt and I believe his sister. And again, the dignity and serenity and the way in which they choose to remember their child is humbling and astonishing. This is a real and terrible fear for so many of our families. And I ask you to join me in mourning his death and sending our deepest condolences to his family and friends as they, I believe, departed last night to take his body back to Belize for burial.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask the council adjourn in the name of Charles Chuck McKelvey. Chuck was a good friend of mine in the business community in Granada Hills, where he owned Granada Hills Typewriter for 40 years, and was one of those people in the community that was always walking up and down the streets. And I know Ms. Gruhl knows Granada Hills business community very well. It's a small, very tight-knit little community, kind of off the beaten path, but the businesses are there, been there for many, many years. And Chuck was one of those guys that just walked around the community, talked to people. Everybody knew him. He was active in the Kiwanis Club, and a good supporter of the community and a good guy. And I used to tease him because he owned Granada Hills Typewriter, so you should change it to Granada Hills Antiques because nobody knows what typewriters are anymore. But he transited into computers and was on the leading edge. But Chuck was one of those people in the community that was very well liked. 40 years in the business community, passed away last week, and I know that people in Granada Hills who knew him loved him and will miss him as one of those real stalwarts of the Granada Hills community. So Charles Chuck McKelvey, thank you.
Mr. Weiss.
Thank you, Mr. President. To add to these sort of rather indescribable tributes that we've been talking about today, I want to add one more where truly our words today have just absolutely nothing. They have no societal or healing benefit. I regret to inform you of the death of a baby named Dexter Wood Luke, who was 10 months old, lived in Sherman Oaks, and yesterday morning his grandfather took him for a walk on Valley Vista, right in the middle of my district, and as the grandfather walked along the sidewalk towards the neighbor's house, for whatever reason, the grandfather didn't see the neighbor's car coming, or the neighbor's car didn't see the grandfather coming, and the car hit the grandfather and the baby died a very short time later. The parents of the baby are Suzanne and Greg Luke, and certainly the hearts of the neighborhood and of my office go out to them.
Mr. Zine.
Request we adjourn in memory of Sergeant with the Los Angeles Long Beach Police Department, Tim O'Donnell. Passed away February 18th. Tim O'Donnell, 36 years of age, was a sergeant with the Long Beach Police Department. Sergeant O'Donnell was on the 405 freeway when he was sideswiped by another car and went over the 405 freeway overpass. Soon after, Sergeant O'Donnell was found slumped over the wheel, deceased. He was stricken by some sudden medical condition. Sergeant O'Donnell was a 12-year veteran of the Long Beach Police Department and was in charge of its Marine Division. He was described as absolutely the most gentle and kind person ever met, and treated everyone with the utmost respect and made everyone feel good about themselves. He will be greatly missed. He's survived by a wife, children ages 4 and 2, his parents, siblings, including 2 brothers, one of whom is Patrick O'Donnell, currently challenging involved in the political process in Long Beach. May Sergeant Tim O'Donnell rest in peace. The second journey motion for Seville Porish passed away Saturday, February 21st. Seville worked at the West Valley Jewish Community Center since 1987. Present at the adult program director and senior director, responsible for many departments besides the senior department, staffed the library, computer lab, arts and theater, and also staffed other fundraising programs, instituted the health fair, volunteer of the year luncheon, and yearly Passover dinner. She was involved in concerts and many activities in the community. She secured grants for Passover Seders, thus enabling seniors to be able to attend a Seder at a lower price. She was loved and will be missed by all. Her smiling face is one that we will never forget. She is survived by her husband, Ted, 4 children, Jan, Larry, Ken, and Andy, and 9 grandchildren. May Seville Porsche rest in peace.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. Other tributes? Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Thank you all very much. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.